Good morning, and welcome to Redeemer Lutheran Church. I'm Pastor Gary Lodeholt. The stone that the builders rejected has become the chief cornerstone. At one time or another, we've probably all heard about the time when Jesus said that, and most of us have probably linked that to how Jesus was rejected by the religious leaders of his time, and yet he became the very foundation of our salvation. It's a powerful message to us of how God does unexpected things and works in unexpected ways, and that we should be open to discovering God wherever and however God may be. As we gather for these morning moments this week, my plan is for us to look together at some women of renown in the Bible. In other words, women with powerful stories of service, of courage, and of God working through them over and over. It's a bit of a stunning thing when you begin to notice it. Throughout the Old Testament, and in fact throughout the Bible times, they had a patriarchal society. Women didn't really count for much, and it wasn't expected that God might work through them or that they could be agents of change in our world. And yet over and over, God lifts women up, and as they overcome their circumstances, they make a difference. Today we begin by looking at Leah, a woman whom you might think of as one of those rejected stones that lays an important foundation for faith. Leah's story is one that confuses us from the beginning because it's hard for us to understand how things could happen the way they did. When it was time for Jacob to marry, his father sent him back to where his family had come from in order to find a wife. In those days, the tradition was to marry someone you were distantly related to, and since his grandfather Abraham had taken the family to Canaan, Jacob had to travel back to their homeland to find a wife. And as luck would have it, the first person he ran into was a servant of his uncle Laban, and while they were talking, his cousin Rachel showed up to water the flocks. Well, Jacob was smitten. The Bible describes Rachel as graceful and beautiful. Rachel also had an older sister named Leah. The Bible describes her only with an uncertain term about her eyes. They were tender or weak or lovely. No one knows what the word means for sure. What we know is that she wasn't beautiful like Rachel, and she wasn't the one Jacob loved. Now, in many ways, Jacob was a scoundrel, cheating his brother out of many things. But when he met his uncle Laban, he met his match. After a month together, Laban said, "You've been here a month and worked, and I should give you some kind of wages. What do you want?" And Jacob agreed to work for 7 years if he could marry Rachel. Laban readily agreed, and it was all arranged. Here's where it gets really confusing for us. Weddings were different then, with lots of celebrating and strong drink. And then it was time for Jacob to enter the dark tent and to go to his bride. In the morning, when there was light to see, he discovered not Rachel, but her sister Leah. Jacob is outraged, but Laban says that it wasn't right to marry off a younger sister before the older one, and that if Jacob will work for another 7 years, he can have both. And so it was decided. Jacob married Rachel too, and then was on the hook to work for 14 years. Now, there's a lot more to this story, but eventually they all went back to Canaan, and this is where we really need to begin to consider what life was like for Leah. How must it have been to share a husband with your sister and to know that you weren't the preferred wife? You weren't as beautiful, and your husband loved another woman and tolerated you. How hard and hurtful it must have been to play second fiddle. But there was some joy for Leah. She was able to bear children and had many while Rachel struggled to conceive. One of Leah's children was Levi, from whom all the priests of Israel came. And another was Judah, the tribe that eventually led to Jesus. She may have been the rejected stone by Jacob, but not by God. This rejected wife became the foundation for God's great work in Christ Jesus. Thanks for watching, and remember to let this day belong to God.